Before you begin, you may wish to find yourself a comfortable, safe space where you know you will not be interrupted, not be interrupted, not be interrupted, not be interrupted, not be interrupted. Hi, and welcome to Rebel Heart Tarot Talk with myself, Alice Grist, and Nikki Cotton. Today, we are going to be exploring how to use tarot, but also how to use the Rebel Heart Tarot deck, which was created with a desire to bring contemporary notions into tarot so that they're accessible and that they're familiar to you in a way that perhaps the older, more traditional decks are not. And therefore, we can mix up the way we work with our cards. So hi, Nikki.
Hi, love. You all right?
I'm good, thank you. Good. So obviously I'm the one with the 30 years tarot experience, and you do have tarot experience, not least creating this deck, but you're still learning. So
yeah, very much learning. I'm kind of sitting in, kind of the learning position today, and kind of going with the flow of what you kind of suggest and advise, because I'm very limited. I'm
going to disagree, but however,
it's one thing to make images in a position where I'm comfortable, because that's what I do. So the making images and kind of using prompts and things like that is one thing. And then there's this thing, it's that feeling where you feel that you kind of should know the cards. And this is one of the things you and I've talked a lot about, isn't it? It's that pull a card a day and just get to know the cards with what is occurring around you at the time. But it is that feeling you come to them as a novice, where you think, oh, I should be knowing all the cards, I should be able to do this, that, and the other, and how do they read next to each other? And it's all that kind of stuff, the pressure we put on ourselves that we shouldn't. So yeah,
which is exactly what we want to do away with, and it's exactly what I hope people who use Rebel Heart Tarot will do away with. And this is why I always say to you, you're not a novice, you're not a beginner, you're somebody who gives herself permission to look at the cards and recreate your own experience and understanding of them. So this in my teaching tarot cards, when I'm teaching groups online and in real life workshops and things like that, one of the things I always say is give yourself permission to interpret the story upon the card in the way you want to. Okay, people hate that, right? It's really, really awkward. It's really difficult. We all come from an education system where we need to learn things by rote, and we need to know exactly what the popular opinion is on, Macbeth or Jane Eyre, so we learn to interpret things, but we within certain lines, of thought and the popular thought. And, maybe, we might look at it from a feminist perspective, or we might look at it from a contemporary perspective, but we have to kind of stay within these quite jail-like barriers and strong walls. But for me, tarot is really not about needing to know 78 official meanings. That is going to tie you up in knots, have you like panicking, like trying to research in your brain what you read about that particular card, and probably coming up against contradictory meanings as well that go between decks or between different books you might have read. And for me, tarot is not an exercise in remembering what somebody else tells you a card is about.
You are literally, that explanation is exactly what I come to with when I sit down with them. That is all the stuff that is going around in my head.
And it's everybody's, and it's exactly the blockage that stops people from even picking up a deck in the first place. Who are they to know what this card means?
Yeah.
We're all spiritual, soulful beings in essence, I believe, and we all have access to our own internal wisdom. We are made from the elements that have been around since forever, and surely those elements hang on to some kind of memory, something that bubbles up. We're completely and perfectly able to create our own understandings of situations, but we are discouraged to do so by culture, the education system, the thoughts and expectations of other people. So when you come to a tarot deck, there's a certain rebelliousness that I feel is necessary to be able to be confident and a good reader. And when I say a good reader, I don't mean be able to predict the future or to psychically connect or mediumistically connect, but rather to allow yourself that permission to look at the picture and say, what's going on here? And then create your own formulaic response that is based on your life experiences, not anybody else's, not somebody from 100 years ago, not somebody who wrote a book in the heyday of the 60s or whatever, but your own personal experiences. And this is life lesson stuff, really. It shouldn't just be applied to tarot. I think it's applied to everything. And it's that idea that we are connected to all things, that there are symbolic patterns within our lives, and that we are perfectly able and capable to interpret them. And when you do, you start to connect to a bigger picture, you start to see the truth of yourself, you dig deeper, it provides the most incredible reflection, and it can supercharge and superpower your decisions moving forward. So the one thing I will say, so beginning tarot card reading, this is what I always say to every single group that I work with, and it's what I say to my 6-year-old daughter, who is quite interested in the tarot. No, she's 7 now. She's 7. But when she was 5, when she was 6, when she was 7, she'd look at a tarot card and I'd say, and she'd say, what does this mean, Mummy? And I'd say, what's the picture say to you? And you know what? 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds don't have a problem in telling you.
No, they don't.
That card means.
They don't. Yeah, they don't have the baggage that we have, that we carry with us, and those kind of expectations and all the rest of it. They're just much freer. It's like when you take them to an art gallery, when they look at the work and they're just intrigued by what they're looking at, and they just. Yeah, they look at. I love taking kids to galleries because they look at artwork in just such a pure way that we don't, because we come with all this expectation that we should know. Same way like this, that we should know more about it, and it puts people off going into a gallery because they think, oh, I should have an education in this. Well, no, that's okay. I'm picking it for myself here. It's the same with this, isn't it? You just come to it and see what happens.
Do you like the card? Do you like the pictures on the card? Is there something intrinsic within it that makes you want to vomit? Or is it something that makes you feel bright and buoyant and kind of excitable? And then, so you look at the different elements as well. So you can look at the color. It might be something that's simple as the color is a turn on or a turn off. And that's some evidence as to what that card might mean to you. Let's keep bringing it back. It's to you. It's not to what it means to that tarot reader on TikTok or that one on Instagram or that one who wrote the famous book, or even the authors of this particular deck. You don't have to jump in line with us. You have to create your own meanings and give yourself permission, which is hard. It took me, I'd say 20, I've been reading tarot for 31 years now. That number just went up recently. But it was maybe only 5 years or so ago that I actually gave myself permission to do this, because I was struggling still with that, trying to read to other people's expectations of what a tarot reader is. Yeah. And, people can be quite married to those meanings, those traditional meanings, but they were just made up by someone. Maybe it was divinely guided, but we can all be divinely guided. And I think that's one of the interesting things about tarot, is it takes you on a spiritual path. It opens up big questions of, okay, so these cards have just reflected my life perfectly to me. What the fuck is going on? And there's something more magical in the ethers. So the first step for me is allowing yourself to interpret the cards in that childlike, innocent, this is what this means right now. And being willing to allow that meaning to change over time, because the cards shift and change depending on your mood, the weather, the circumstances of your life, the things that are going on in the bigger picture, cultural picture, as well as in your own, personal one. So it's being permissive, allowing yourself to step outside of the cultural boundaries that say ABC only, and go, all the way to Z and onwards to your own language. So let's just take a card, for example. I'm going to just pull one, and I want you, Nikki, to just tell me,
no pressure,
in a manner of a 5 or 6-year-old, what you think is going on. So I don't know which card this is. I'll see it as you do. Oh, there we go.
Okay, 6 of Swords. So you've got somebody who's feeling quite blue, satin. The thing is, I know what we came to this card with, didn't we? It's that kind of, it was the ancient mariner kind of feel to me.
That's your experience of the card. You're allowed to have the experience of having made the card.
Okay.
Having that in your little, other people might come to this card and think, oh, a reader once pulled it for me, or I have my own deck and this card comes up every time I'm, packing up and traveling or thinking of changing things in my life. Everyone's going to have their own experiences. So you are allowed to have your experience of having created this card and for that to play into the meaning.
So yeah, so okay. So it was the ancient mariner kind of stuck in the doldrums, waiting for the wind, waiting for some movement. You're kind of packed up and ready to go somewhere, but you can't seem to push forward. So you're kind of stuck in this gloomy space. But then if you look up, there was the little coffee table and lamp and plant, which was kind of a bit of a lighthouse. If you look up and look out, then actually it's not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah, so that's a very concise and personally inspired approach to a tarot card. And anybody looking at that, they can take whatever they like from that. And if somebody comes up with something completely left field and different than we are, then I think that's absolutely perfect. Because then the way I see it is if they then pick that card, then their meaning that they've assigned to it will arise appropriately.
Yeah.
Therefore, you don't get it wrong if you've got your own meanings. It's intriguing. It's intriguing. The tarot, I think the only time the tarot ever feel wrong is when we're not ready to experience something or understand something about ourselves. We're not willing to go deep, because that's, the tarot take us deep. So let's do another one, and I'll interpret this one. I'm going to interpret it in a really simplistic way, which is hard for me to do with all my many years and reams of experience, but I'll have a go. Okay, so let's just, we can pick them apart as well.
Oh, Queen of Swords. I love this card.
Queen of Swords, Lexi. So if I'm just going to come at this. I'm going to try and come at it from somebody who's never really seen this card before, knows nothing of it. So as a 6-year-old, I'd say, well, there's a bareheaded lady. She's kind of gothic and dark looking. She has 2 swords raised, which is quite a defiant kind of approach. She has like this amazing crown that again looks quite gothic, almost like bat's wings or something. And the space that she's in is like these passionate colors, but also quite bare and stark. It's like she's slicing through circumstances. She's not taking any prisoners. There's no nonsense there. There's a real strength of self-knowing there, individuality. So that would be, I guess, a real sort of simplistic reading of what that card means. And then you build upon that. So once you have started to give yourself permission to look at the cards, and to begin to work with them and to begin to craft and create your own meanings. Don't get me wrong, this goes on a while. This might take years. If you're committed and you love them and you find them a helpful and useful part of your day, then you keep pulling cards, you keep pulling them every day, or you pull them with friends, which is so much more powerful because you get double reflection or triple reflection or whatever, or
conversation, isn't it? It's conversation, other people's ideas and opinions and life experiences that they can sort of chuck into the mix with it. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Like make it conversational. Yeah, do it alone in your bedroom at night, but also do it with other people and get the people you trust, of course, probably without too many glasses of wine gone down, but just in safe spaces that feel sacred and fun. It's fun. Oh my God, there's nothing more fun than sitting around with a bunch of good friends and pulling some cards and kind of reflecting together on what we think they might mean. But you keep pulling cards and you keep doing it over time. And then you create this connection, communication, understanding with your deck, which is a rebellious act in and of itself. And yes, you might want to reference the guidebook because this one is particularly well written.
It really is. I don't know who wrote it, but they're bloody good.
I know. But the way I wrote this was I didn't want the cards to be penned in. So they're kind of written in a way that allows you to have prompts and your own affirmations and to explore your own stuff. I think some of the traditional meanings for cards, I was looking at some of them when we were creating this card deck, and some of them are so very specific. You know, like I was looking at one tarot book, like an old one, and it was like, this card means you're going to get divorced, or a tall, dark man is going to enter your life. Like really specific.
They're really specific. I was going to say that because that was with the court cards. I know we've discussed this before, but the court cards are always associated with people in a very specific way. And then, because I remember talking to you about this, and I'm like, well, what other meaning could that court card have outside of it being a question about a person? Because we don't always come to the cards wanting to know about people. It's a lot of it is circumstance, isn't it? And you just kind of think, well, what else could that card be telling you that isn't about an actual physical person? So that was, again, something that, you know, I would be looking at books and going, oh, I don't know what this means now.
That's it. I try to steer clear of that in writing this, because I just think it's none of our business actually what anybody else is up to. And I think that tarot give us an opportunity that we rarely get in life unless we go have a therapist or something like that, to look inward and really go within ourselves. And that's the only place where you can create change. It's the only place where you can grow and evolve from. So you know, you might want to get your old-fashioned deck and find out about that partner of yours or that potential partner, and end up pulling, you know, those kind of court cards and assigning them to them. But I would say the healthiest way to approach court cards or any tarot card is to just presume that all the information that is coming through is for you and is about you. Because if it's about someone else, what are you going to do with it? You know, what are you going to do with it? It's like scrolling your ex's Facebook.
Yeah, it's not healthy.
It's not going to get you anywhere. It might churn a lot of emotions up, and then the tarot will reflect that. And then you'll be looking at the tarot and you'll be like, I don't like this. And actually it becomes a bit of a weird self-fulfilling mess. So I would say for beginners and for people who've been reading for a long time, always keep the reading as very specific to you. You know, even say you wanted to ask about a relationship, ask about what you can do in the relationship. What is the relationship worth to you? How can you change things? Is it worth you changing things? So we're not kind of delving into somebody else's knicker drawer. We're just kind of, you know, looking in our own and then doing accordingly. I think it's a much healthier approach.
Yeah. And so if you were doing like sitting in a group and reading for somebody within the group, you would then reflect that back, rather than it being you, it would reflect it back to that person and their situation, rather than, again, them opening it out to a wider circle.
Yeah, I mean, people do come to me for, I mean, I don't generally do relationship readings in terms of, you know, if somebody asks me about what another person is thinking or planning or whatever, I always bring it back to actually, should we just look at where you're at and where you might go forward in relation to this relationship or another or something else. And I think, you know, some people don't want to do that because they want the quick answers. And that's what we're looking for when we ask about other people. We want to be told that somebody is adoring us from afar, or somebody's going to change, or somebody feels the same way we feel. I don't know. But I think actually still, even if you get told that your long lost lover is pining over you, what are you going to do with it? Think about what you can do at all times, how you can progress your life, how you can be in the moment. You know, can you commit to where you are? And yeah, that person may show up again, or they may not, or, you know, your relationship may change, or your marriage may fail or be wonderful, but the only thing ever that you can really focus on is yourself. And I think that's where tarot really make great strides in our personal progression. And when we get lost in that jungle of other people, it can be, I think, actually quite distressing.
Messy, because the thing is, everybody has their own direction, don't they? You know, and you're not going to be able to control what they're thinking or feeling. You can only do that yourself. I noticed the mug.
I know, I'm just holding it up for you. I can't, nobody can hear me until I talk. I've got a little bit of lipstick there, whoops.
Sorry, yeah, no, I just saw it.
So yeah, I'm thinking that's a pretty good lesson on at least the beginnings of tarot. But before we end, is there any questions? Because we could perhaps do more videos like this, perhaps talking about different spreads and different ways to approach the cards. But do you got any basic questions? You know, the kind of questions people are scared to ask because they think they're too silly.
You want me to ask you a question?
Do you have any? Yeah.
Oh God,
otherwise,
you put me on the spot. I suppose then, if you were going to do, rather than, because you know you've encouraged me to pull a card a day for your day ahead and kind of think about that, and it has been a really good exercise over the last few months and just kind of getting to know the cards in relation to me. And we've had a lot where I was pulling from your deck before we had these ones, where I was getting the Page of Pentacles quite a lot, and she was like, she became my best friend almost. She'd come out at least twice a week. But if you were going to do like a simple spread for people just to kind of, you know, what would be your first spread that you would pull? So it's more than one card a day, but if they were wanting to look a little bit deeper at something, what would you suggest that they did? Is that a good question or a bad question?
Yeah, it's a good question. I love a 3-card reading. I don't often, apart from when I'm working with clients, I don't often do more than 3 cards. I think things can get convoluted and complicated really, really quickly with the cards. And if we don't get the answers we want, I know in the past I've been prone to keep pulling them, but you won't get a different answer. The cards are wanting you to work with what is. And until you've done that, they're not going to shift the story, which is why sometimes you get stalker cards like your Princess of Pentacles. But that was quite a positive stalker.
Yeah.
Asking you to be rebellious and kind of think about your work differently. But yeah, so a 3-card reading, I feel, can be adapted in loads of different ways, but you've got the general gist of, I mean, traditionally it might be something like past, present, future. I'm not mad keen on reading too far into the future either, because you have to do work to get to the future. So it's best to sort of stay where we are and maybe a few days ahead or a few weeks ahead. But perhaps you could look at it as, this is the influence on me, the first card, this is the influence that's affecting me right now. And it could be something from the past, or it could be a current situation. Then you could have the second card as all kinds of different things. You could have it as, how am I feeling? What am I doing? Where am I going? And then the third card, the guidance, the kind of the possibility, the potential. Or you could do it as like something much more simpler, like to give me 3 cards that tell me about my life right now, or what do I need to know right now? 3 cards, please. And then just kind of join them all up, look at them as a 6-year-old, look at the patterns and the images, and you might find, again, this is up to you as an individual to conclude, but you might find that each one of those 3 cards represents a different area of your life. Like one might quite clearly be your relationships, one might be your family, one might be your health, you know, it could be, one could be career. There's all kinds of ways of looking at it. Or it might be that they join together as like a little story that's like, okay, so this happened and this is where you are now, and perhaps you need to do this that you kind of thought about doing but you haven't done yet, but this is a good idea, you know.
I was going to say that is often the case when you pull a card, is that it's that prompt that this is the thing you really need, you know, you need to do, and you're avoiding it. It is, yeah.
I mean, the cards repeatedly will tell you what you already know, which is part of their magic and their frustration if you're not willing to go there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I always think tarot are best taken alongside a spiritual path, a path of change and personal progression, development, coaching, mentoring, therapy, good friendship. You know, they're in and amongst many of our tools, and they can be so powerful, but not in and of themselves.
Yeah, it's not the be all and end all. It's a tool.
Yeah, a really pretty pink tool in this instance.
A very pretty tool.
And quite comical, our cards, I think.
I think we went with that though, didn't we? We wanted them to feel positive. We wanted them to feel light. We wanted them to feel like they were going to kind of encourage you to step forward rather than get stuck in a rut.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference maybe, is that in some of those past books that I was looking at, they're just like showing you we're in a rut with no with no passage past it. And when I wrote the book and when we created the imagery together and you did that, it was, I think, with a real mandate to always find the way out, always find the next step forward.
But I think that's how we process stuff, because I think we realized that when we were talking, wasn't it? It's that kind of, we're always looking forward and kind of that positivity, and okay, so there's this, but how do I pick myself up out of that? And we've done a lot of talking about that, and I think we kind of infused that mentality into these cards.
Yeah, because life is never like fully perfect, and I think you get to a certain age and you realize that no one circumstance is going to suddenly be the Prince Charming to your life and sort everything out. It's always up and down and around and backwards and forwards, and slipping over and breaking your arm, and there's constantly something. But the cards help us navigate that really, really powerfully. And I think there's a lot these days on a spiritual path where people are on a spiritual path because they want to achieve success and acclaim and manifest everything. And actually, can we just get through the day? Can we just figure out how to deal with this particular set of crappy circumstances? And then we'll worry about all that manifesting stuff, maybe like when we've healed a little bit,
Yeah.
And the tarot will get you there. They will incrementally take you higher. And that's my experience. But it's incrementally and it's never overnight. And we're not working to anybody's Instagram influencer kind of energies. It's just slowly, slow.
Yeah,
they're there, they'll hold your hands and they'll bring you into union with yourself, I think, eventually. And then back out again, and then in again. All right then, Niki. Well,
all right, love.
Let's do another one of these lessons soon. Tarot 101. And otherwise, everybody, please do go to our channel, Rebel Heart Tarot Talk. Check out our other interviews, our weekly readings, and other magic conversations that Niki and I will be having on there. And please do subscribe. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.